everyone and a little appetizer.
Thank you. I just stopped to get those on the way home. They're good. Let me just tease me. I'm gonna pop one of these too.
Hi, how are you? Are you? Good. Did you sign something? You don't have to sign? Yes. If you want to have a question for any of the candidates, you can fill that out.
Covenants and restrictions.
When you're ready. How's everyone? Fill that out.
Not bad, how about you? How you doing? I'm back. Hi, Paul. Okay. Well. Mr. Mullen, yes, I would appreciate it. Thank you. All right? Yeah, very good. Very good.
Would you like any sample questions?
I have him in Diana's office.
Would you guys like some sample questions you may want to ask?
Sorry, Captain.
Collecting the questions.
Well, I think she doesn't have.
Oh, did I just ask
Ours,
this
she
one?
has exactly the ones that looks like ours. I think.
Oh, it's two. Anything? Oh, okay.
Sorry, let me get some more.
Oh, really?
Fabulous. I wanted to tell you how much I love it. Okay, yeah, I'll pop by. Oh, okay. Yeah, oh my
meet and greet event. Here is some of your candidates, and you have turned over a few questions for them. So, we've got John Baker, Mr. Gordon, Juan Mercado, Rose, Maria, Jane, and Ken. Don. There you go. Don Serrano. First question is says for all. Do you guys hear me well? This is so far, who's here? They haven't been in contact with me. This question is from Paul Romero. What budgetary changes would you like to see? That's number one question. And number two, how will you increase community involvement, such as committees? Tom?
All right. Served on the board just several years now, so familiar with the budget process. Every year, we always are looking for things we can do to improve any budget items. And also, we have to make adjustments for inflation and cost of living. The biggest thing we'll have in the next couple of budget cycles is how we want to appropriate money coming out of our reserves for projects as they're slated to come up for work and due to the reserve study, or if there's any other sort of special projects that we need to make.
Anyone else would like to?
Sure. I'd like to go in and take the budget, look at it line item by line item, to ensure that we're getting the right services for the money that we're spending, whether it's street trimming or the road sealant or the fitness center, which has turned out to be a nice remodel. I want to go back, dissect it, look at every line item in there. I'd like to start to poll the community and see what our membership would like to have to make this a premier community. And then from a participation standpoint, which I think is really important, is this a general malaise and fatigue in the community. I think there's been quite a bit of overload on the elections. I don't think people like participating in the board meetings. I think they've been kind of harsh and somewhat long and tedious and maybe not even polite to everyone. So if I'm on the board, I'm going to expedite the time of the board meetings. I'm going to try and make it a fun, exciting, interesting community. I think that's something that will bring out much more participation. I think there's been a lot of overload and a lot of fatigue.
Well, just to add to John, I have chaired the finance committee, so I do understand the process as well. I think we've done a fairly good job of reviewing whatever contract we have with the service vendors that we use. And I think for most of you who've been here for several years, you've seen that our HOA fees have either maintained or for the most part dropped. So I think if we can just continue that process, we'll be able to improve the services and maintain our lower HOA fees. In terms of the issue with the participation, this is probably the biggest turnout we've had in probably a year or so, which is great. I wish I had an exact answer to help increase participation, but I promise you as a board member, I am open to any suggestions, any issues or comments you may have to help improve that. So.
I have to agree with all of them. These are all very important facts. We also have to look at your 1, 3, 5-year plan and also your strategic plan and involve all members of the association like we did several years ago where we requested that everybody come to our strategic plan to put their input in so we could do the 1, 3, 5-year plan and do what our people would like to do within that time period to keep the assessments either maintained where they are or if that. Also, we were given some issues that the developer did not fund correctly, and we came upon and sat on our land, so we had to come up with ways to put that money back into the roads, into other items that we had in place that we couldn't have because the money wasn't there. And still, the finance committee with the board, on which I was sitting at that time, were able to maintain the assessments low, so we wouldn't get hit at a large increment. When we did the budget planning for a couple of years, we decided that we would do in levels, not to do it all at once and do the increments all and hit everybody all together at once. So it wouldn't hit your pocket just as hard, because everybody here, even the board, we all pay the same dues you're paying. We don't wanna get hit for $100 increase at a time, so we worked on that. We have gone through the budget line by line, and every year, every budget meeting that they hold is posted outside, and it's open to every single homeowner in this community. You can come to any meeting, sit down, talk, bring your ideas, ways to cut down. The finance committee will sit down and work it out, and if it's something feasible that can be done, they will do it. If you can't come to a meeting, you can send a suggestion. That's one way to participate, and we try to get that out to a lot of the homeowners, and people don't come out. It is hard, a lot of people do work, a lot of people don't have that much time to spend, but even if it's 5 minutes, even if it's an email that you can send out, that will be greatly appreciated. I have been on every committee in this community. I've been here since 2003, and I've been involved in everything. So there has not been a committee that I have not worked on, served on. Newsletters, I've done newsletters with Pulse, I've done the security detail, the neighborhood crime watch. I've just about done everything else. And I will continue to volunteer, whether I'm on this board or I'm not on this board, I will continue to volunteer. Yes, Frederick's got a rough one, not everybody gets along together at the time, and not everyone is doing the same thing, but that's what we all are here to work it out.
This past year, I was the liaison to the finance committee and setting the budget up. And there was a discussion that went a little bit long and a little bit heavy with regards to having an operating surplus. The operating surplus came from dues that homeowners have not paid. And this operating surplus literally was from sales of homes. And the reason that it was made that way was really pretty straightforward. We didn't budge, we didn't bargain with realtors or attorneys. We collected all of our dues. And that operating surplus now has been moved back to our reserve account. It was just over $300,000 that we had in an operating surplus this past year. And those are people who never paid or never got off the blocks, if you will. We now have 9 homeowners that have high balances. The remainder of them, budget-wise, are falling into place. So what did the finance committee do? Well, they went through line by line and took a look at each line and then arrived at a decision to say, well, if you have an operating surplus, maybe we'll lower the fees. Well, taking that into consideration, they did lower. They brought it to the board. There were a couple of mid-course corrections, and after the mid-course corrections were made, the dues were settled at about $85.55 a month. Now that's somewhat lower. Can we continue to do that and put forth the same effort to try to have comparable amenities as some of the other neighborhoods that have been compared to North Shore? And the answer to that question is we have a reserve account, but it's not bottomless. So I guess the one thing that we have to look at is, as we go forward, we have to be a little bit cautious, but at the same time, think of the amenities that are going to be able to maintain our values, regardless of what community we live in.
What budgetary changes would you like to see, number one? And number two was, how will you increase community involvement, such as committees?
Well, when it comes to the budget, I think as Gina was just pointing out, you have to look at line by line. I typically like to look above the revenue sources and also below at the expenses. Typically, the biggest source of revenues, as we heard, collection of past dues, foreclosing on property, and increasing rental income is a great way to start. If you have more income, you can afford more expenses. My goal is not to lower your dues any lower. I actually question why we lowered them. I heard a good example of why. I think most of the homeowners in this community bought in because it's more upscale. You're not here where we need to save every penny. I don't believe in waste. I'm on the expense side. I look at the largest contract, and what does that obligate the company monthly? What do we get in return for that? So from a budgetary point of view, I think just to have a good finance committee, good strategic planning, as I heard, and all of that is key to the success of any business, which is understanding your income and how to improve that, and then maintain certain levels of income, and understanding your biggest expense items and getting your best value for it. As far as participation, from my experience, I've been here 10 years, it has not been a warm, friendly environment, although we heard you're invited to come here. I've luckily been involved with some other communities, and I've noticed that neighbors talk to neighbors, and word gets out of whether these are worthwhile meetings or a waste of time. And so, as far as adding committees, I think the biggest thing is communication is the number one thing, and teamwork. It's about a team of 5 board members working together. You don't always have to agree on everything, but the main thing is to keep a professional, business-like attitude. Having a good team at the board and the committees that support them will filter down into the community, making it, as Dan said, more fun, more enjoyable. You know, having a guy with a gun kind of intimidates some people. So I think that the overall board could utilize. I understand, he's wearing a gun.
He's also wearing a uniform.
Excuse me, this is my time to talk. I'm just using an example of how things could be different. That was the question. My opinion is that things could be done a little differently. I have lots of kids, okay? I see colored walls, and I see all different things, so I hear all kinds of strategies on how things could be different. We've seen a board that's been intact for a long, long time since the developer 10 years ago. I'm asking the community to pick some new blood. It doesn't even have to be me. A lot of people may not like it. But the bottom line is when we do, you should look at resumes. You should look at people, what they do in their life. What do they do? Do they have experience? Do they have finance experience? Do they have budgetary experience? Do they have commercial and social experience? That's one attribute. To look at what people have done. And then look at the goals. And I'm here for the better of the community. I own here. I want to see improvement. That's my introduction.
All right, as far as the budget changes, I'd like to see, I want our budget to be would be competitive. In the short term, I think we can come down maybe a couple bucks. Long term, you see the budget going back up, and I'd say better improvements, this is basic structure that we have on our property. As far as the involvement of the committee, kind of what Peter just said, it hasn't been that friendly the past 10, 11 years, I've been 11 years, this has been a thing for the years. I think we do blood, and especially for more people who come out, want to contribute and help. We got competition coming, we have to work hard to agree. If we don't improve, make things better, we're gonna start slipping down and it's gonna affect our property values. That's what makes me concerned.
Thank you. Question is for Rosemary. Question number 1, what property management company does Rosemary work for? Is it First Service, yes or no? Question number 2, will you change our legal counsel and why? Really, this is why.
Yes, I do work for First
provided was until May 21st, which was the deadline. We have mailed out the information that was provided by each candidate, so, which everyone has.
So is that no?
Pardon me?
Is that a no, company didn't listen?
I will be happy to make a copy after
So
we're
that's
done
something
here.
you addressed to me, that was my question, I just wanted to know if they were gonna tell us what they thought they brought to the document. So the answer to that is, you've already sent it to us and we're not here yet, is that right?
Will you like to?
I would say that, you know, you could give yourself a brief resume or background in what your value add would be.
I'm involved in construction and real estate development my entire career. The function of that, I have actually managed commercial property owners associations on commercial developments. And then, in addition to serving on this board, I've also served on a municipal water planning board and other committees in other civic and social organizations. So in my entire career is basically based around real estate property development management.
Good. I've lived in this community since 1986, before North Shore, before Winona, back when this was horses and cows. I love it out here. I'm going to stay here until the day I die. I think it's a great place to live. I know a lot of the local politicians. I personally run several businesses, and of course, obviously, the board with that and grown up. And I have, more importantly, served on the board of 4 nonprofits, all in this area. So I think that I have some good business skills. I have really good people skills. I serve today as the head of the fitness committee and the new safety committee. And I've become very, very involved in the community. And the reason I'm here is not only to build excitement within North Shore and to try and get the involvement back and try and put some spark back in our community, but to make sure that we have a very preeminent community to preserve our values. So when someone wants to buy into this side of town, North Shore is high on their list of places to look. And when anyone here entertains selling their house, I want to make sure that our property values are maintained, and this stays a preeminent place as well. You know, the key thing that kind of drove me to run was the malaise and the fatigue in the community. And I think there's just a lot of nonchalance. Part of it is we're here tonight because we have a rare opportunity. Randolph has sued the board, and there's been a agreement that all 5 board seats are up for election. So this is a chance for you folks, you know, to get our quorum and put a face on the community that appeases everyone else. This is a really rare opportunity. We've got all 5 seats are up, and we can build a lot more excitement and a lot more participation and a lot more interest in North Shore Lake Park.
My name is Juan Ricardo. I've lived in the community since 2004. For the past 4 years, I've had either volunteered myself on the board or I chair the finance and ARB committee. Professionally, I work for a software consulting firm where I handle all internal operations, both from HR to financial. Again, what I bring to the table is a rational mind. I don't get too caught up in any political or any type of conversation that was happening through the community. I come in, issues are presented, and I ask whatever questions I need to make my decision. I think I'm pretty personable. I'm easy to talk to. I think for the most part, if for most of you, if you ever submitted an application to ARB or if you've been to any of the meetings, I don't think I've ever had an issue with anyone that has talked to me. Other than that, all I can do is be here, be present, and do the best I can.
My name is Rose Meester, and as you all know, I do work for First Service Residential. I've had my license and the license since 2007. I have worked with the community since when I moved in 2004. I started with doing the newsletter for those residents, been here for all those years, and I've been involved with the development and the transition of the community. I have been team player. For those of you that have been on committees with me, they know that I get my hands dirty in uniform of liaison. I enjoy it. I enjoy my community. I love this community. If I didn't, I don't think I'd be involved as much as I am. And I really think I have a lot to bring to the table. I've been in human resources, I've been in financial, and I've also been a pension consultant throughout the years. I've also owned a business in California, and my largest corporate company was the city of Anaheim Youth Programs, my company did. So I have a lot to bring to the table. I have been here since June 2003. I retired from New York, where I was a police officer in law enforcement for 27 years. I worked in patrol. I did community policing. I did foot post, foot patrol, working midnight shifts in projects. Made lots of friends, lots of homes to hang out with, and lots of places to have coffee at 3 o'clock in the morning. I then went into street crime undercover in the gang unit. Later on, after I was injured, I ended up in working in community affairs division, where we did all the car seat checks, anything that had to do with community policing. I moved from there to the commissioner's office, where I scheduled the overtime for the entire department. So that covers 700 and some odd members, from the chief all the way down to every patrolman on the street level. After the accident and the many surgeries and rehab, I moved to Florida with my husband and 2 of my kids. I have a 34-year-old physical therapist. I have a 23-year-old that works at Disney and is getting her teaching degree. My son just completed his military tour the last 18 months in Guantanamo, and he just came home last week for good. And he's starting school now, and has just started his new job at Victoria's Secret. So, yeah. I have 4 grandchildren. My husband works at the Atlanta International Airport, and he also runs security for Delta Airlines. I have worked and lived here. I've been on every committee. I've assisted in just about everything. And any homeowner that has come to me, I have helped. I've worked with. I try to solve issues that come to the table and that have been brought to my attention by each and every homeowner. And my goal is to be there to help and keep assisting. And I also want my travel agency to come and have that.
I'm Gene Smith. I've been on the board for just about 6 years. I was asked to join. I have sat on the Architecture Review Board. I also chaired the ARB. I have been the liaison to the Finance Board. My background, I was a banker, and then I went over to the dark side and started dealing as a software consultant to financial institutions. I'm still in that business right now and deal with banks, thrift credit unions, and other financial institutions in the Northeast United States. In the 6.5 years that I have been here, this is the 3rd homeowners board, or the 3rd board that I've sat on. I was on the planning board, planning and development board for the township that I lived in, and successfully had a cell tower removed. And if you know about cell towers, it's pretty difficult to make one come down. We made this one come down because it was illegally constructed to begin with. And that was the ultimate goal that got me on the planning board for this township. After leaving New York State, I sat on the condominium board and was the first board to seat after the developer turned over. Word of caution. When we talk about some of the other developments, we need to realize that these developments could, in theory, still be under the developer's hands. And normally what they will do, and this was one thing that we bumped into at our condo association, they under-reserve. We took it on the chin the first year and had to raise our dues by 50%, and we also had a $200 assessment for 160 homes in order to catch up with our reserve. The first reserve study put us in that type of a situation. developer, you may be dealing with another amenity that may look good right now. You have to know whether in fact they have been turned over to the homeowners so that they're managed.
The question again was a brief description of your past experience with work or CV?
Just general line.
Okay. I moved in with my family in 2004 after leaving Hunter's Creek. My work, I think, has provided me, I've had one job since I was about 18 years old, which is doing foreign exchange. Similar to his resume, we service banks and credit unions across the United States and Canada. It's a publicly traded company. I do sit on that board as well as some of the committees of that board. I also, on a nonprofit sense, sit on another community association board. And I have quite a bit of experience in being a team member of the board. And I'm focused on improving the value of the community. Improving security is my top concern, having 4 children. And I think that as someone being objective and new, it would be helpful to have that.
I know I'm out of order, but since there was another gentleman, I believe Mr. Gordon, that brought up in his small bio about Mr. Peanut suing the association, I think it would be of value if this is one of the largest meetings we've had. And I wasn't aware of this to know Mr. Peanut, who I asked what that was in regard to and what the outcome was.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate it. I had chosen to not bring that up unless someone wanted to know. John's wife and my wife know each other, and I had heard a lot of the rumblings. Being, unfortunately, I like some of these folks that are retired, and so they have more time, but having 4 children and running a multinational company that processes billions of dollars in transactions, unfortunately, I didn't have as much time as I do now to get involved. But at about a year or so ago, I heard that there was an election and that there hadn't been a quorum for almost 5 years. Now, luckily, I've had experience on a previous board, on this other homeowners board, and had written legal advice from a very well-respected law firm. Ironically, the law firm that I'm speaking of, this company's law firm, just recently merged. So because there's a few HOA specialty law firms. However, at that, prior to that election, I made a commitment to some of our neighbors that I would do my best to reach a quorum. And luckily, Lorraine, I thought I saw her. There she was. She also had a similar thing. Her and I were on the board, on the ballot, sorry. And there were 2 members on the ballot as well. But the Florida law has precedents set that if there's no quorum after your 3 years, the bylaws, then that board has not been, after that, in the 4th year, has not been properly appointed. And so hence, a quorum would allow for all 5 seats to be up. We did obtain a quorum that night. And prior to, I had spoke to the attorney, because as you know, usually there's an attorney and their assistant here. And I explained that to the attorney that all 5, if we had a quorum, all 4 people are available to sit, if there's only 4 running for a 5-member board. He didn't say it exactly, sue me, but he basically said, sue me. He said, tell your lawyer to give me that advice, which we did. We went in and started dialogue trying to show that all 4 members of that board should be involved. That night, when there was a quorum, he admitted, we have a quorum, but we're not sure which 2 of the 4 should be on the board. I call that, on the Southern board, I call that hogwash. Okay, it was a fact that the folks that have been here 6 or so years, or have in my opinion, a conflict of interest, because one of the largest expense items is to a company that the president works for. But putting that aside, it still didn't go against the fact that there was 4 seats elected. Lorraine and I technically should have been on the board, along with the other 2 gentlemen. And instead, what did they do? I came the next night pleading for it. Instead, they blew me off, again told me, get your lawyer involved, and went and raised the requirements for a quorum to 20%.
In that amendment that's now been revoked?
Correct.
Correct?
That's correct. Thank you.
And was that legal counsel, our legal counsel advised that that was properly for
It was in line with the Florida statutes.
a condo or an HOA?
HOA.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm trying to understand the whole story here.
Right. Well, that's all the flaws. Well, unfortunately, yeah, so if I can finish along the process here. They did that. It was legally, quote, correct, they thought, but again, since the election was being questioned, technically they shouldn't be making changes, but they did. If the real intent was to have a quorum, which is my only reason for here. I've taken quite a chunk of change out of my pocket to get to here, and it's not to be here. Are you kidding me? My family and my work wished I wasn't here. But the fact is, this was incorrect, completely incorrect. If the goal was to have a quorum, what's a quorum for? To have the majority, and the majority, what is it, 15, 20%? That's a majority vote. If that was their goal, then why would they raise the quorum requirements? And use, oh, we're going to condos and we can mail the ballots in. Okay, another quorum was not reached. We've had 3 or 4 elections since that election where 160 odd people came and voted. The highest turnout supposedly I heard from the folks that have been here forever. That was the highest turnout ever. And they voided it out because we made a mistake. Who we? I didn't. The board or their management company. So unfortunately that pushed me when their lawyer the second time blew it off, changed the rules again. I went ahead and formally engaged the council and contested the election. And the process is that you have to go to mediation, and in that mediation, we went ahead, because I'm not here, there's no money goal for me at all. I just wanted fairness. And I just hope that we can get a quorum. My question tonight is, what are you going to do about the marketing for the election? What's different than just sticking the sign out there? Our elections in this other place, we stick polls all down the street, vote today thing, and we actually aggressively promote a turnout. Okay, that's all I ask is a quorum get us, and those people with their votes choose 5 people. I hope they're newer blood.
So then, it's my understanding from what the gentleman over here said, that the outcome of the mediation was that we now have an election
For all 5 seats.
for all 5 seats, and the amendment that we had of 20% was revoked because that was illegal.
No.
They just voluntarily.
I want to clarify.
Okay, because it didn't say anything, and I feel kind of penalized.
First thing is, you all have access to the mediation agreement. It's online. So you can look at that. Second thing I want to say is the validity of his argument was never put into court. The whole point of this is the board decided, and with Mr. Peter, to go to mediation as part of the process to save the community money. Within there, we said, as a board, we need to do what's best for this community. Instead of prolonging this and paying more fees, both on his end and for the community, the best thing to do is just have an election. So yes, the net result was we do have 5 seats up. We did revoke that amendment. That, again, when it was done by the board, it was just to be in line with the Florida statute. It wasn't for anything else. There was an error that was made in that first election. Now, you can pass claims wherever, but at the end of the day, the board tried to make an action to correct it so it wouldn't be repeated again.
There was an error though. At the election, there was a miscount, right? They didn't.
I don't know, again, I wasn't on the board. I
No,
was
but you were
in the
there,
room.
right? And there was an error that night. And the biggest error was there was a quorum made, and Mr.
No.
Ween, there was a quorum, and Mr. Ween even
Again, the
recorded.
point is there was an error. Where, we don't know. And again, it could have been many things, so I don't want to get into that. At the end of the day, we're here today to have a new election. We have a great turnout. We have more than 5 candidates. So now the community has a chance to vote wherever they want onto the community.
It just so,
And again, if you wanna read the agreement, it is online. What I don't want is for words to get twisted around and just read it and it's all there.
When was it and where is it?
It's in the First Service website, your communities, it's, yeah, the First Service website, your community. It's under association documents, and I believe it's maybe the fifth one down, and it says,
When was that posted?
it was posted right after we settled.
So he said North Shore's website.
Not North Shore's website.
Yeah,
It's
is there a link
First
from
Service,
the-
First Service Residential has a website that you can go in and see your account, you can see all your documents, you can see all the minutes.
Correct.
It's there. It's,
Maybe a communication telling us all that would be great.
right,
Yeah,
because,
right.
you know, we get it out,
That'd be
we
great.
try to look at them, I try to look at the North Shore website. And then when I hear rumblings of the problem, if it's not there, I don't think.
So maybe what we can do is we can ask staff to send out mass communication to everyone. And with respect to everyone here, I would like to just sort of get back on track to what we're doing. And I'm not starting what you guys are doing.
And I appreciate it, I just wanted to understand, since it had been brought
Yeah,
up.
so as a candidate, the first question was, what increases participation and community involvement? Here we are, this is our fourth election in a year. I'm fatigued. I bet many of you folks are fatigued. This is the greatest turnout we've had by far, because obviously there's a high level of interest. Maybe there's a high level of disdain, but certainly there's a high level of fatigue. And we've come to this point, and we can add some really fresh perspectives in all of this. Tell your neighbors, we've got to get a quorum, we've got to get an election, no matter who you vote for. This is the key, this is why people are fatigued. If I wasn't involved in this, I go, fourth election in a year, how much money is involved, how much time is involved? All of us come here on an evening after a long day. But we've got to get this right now, and that's why participation has dwindled down here, and that's why excitement has dwindled, is because of things like this.
Excuse me, just before we get off this point, is there any way you can put a link to the, what is it, First Service?
We'll just add it, you just add it to the,
Could you
you
put
know.
in, put somewhere in there that the documents are there, or is it a link to the documents? So that people know
Just
where to go look.
put the link right on the very top where all the other links are, put that on the top, the link them right into First Service.
But make sure there's a link that lets people know that the settlement is in there. Because they're not gonna know to go to First Service for the settlement.
Is that the signed and filed document, or is it?
Okay. I would like to remind the candidates that you can take up 2 minutes to answer the question.
He didn't get to
We
answer.
did not answer the
Oh,
call,
yeah.
so let's let him on to it.
Maybe you want to read.
Yeah.
Well, let's do a quick bio and what I can bring to the board after we get sidetracked there. My background is I graduated from the Naval Academy with a degree in chemical engineering. Went on to flight school with the Navy. Did almost 10 years active duty, then went to the reserves and went into the Air Force as well. Currently a Russian airline pilot. What that brings, I'm very analytical, and I also think brings a level of fairness, reasonableness to the board. When I was in the Navy, I was a legal officer, so I had a lot of feelings, legal matters, with my commanding officer, make a recommendation how to handle cases that were brought before us, and we ran the gamut from, day wall, drug abuse, and several other big ticket items that I had to deal with and work them out and everything. So I think having that level of experience, being able to work with other people, be very analytical, great asset.
The next question is for anyone on the table. Lawn maintenance of vacant properties. This question is from Mr. and Mrs. Harris. Lawn maintenance of vacant properties.
What's the board's policy, I would think, is what that is.
Let the board interpret the question how they want, or the candidates.
What we have is, we, in our contract with our landscaping company, our manager can tell them which homes are vacant and which homes need to have the attention of lawn service. And our lawn service vendor does not charge us to go in and cut these lawns. And he will go in at no charge. Your maintenance, each individual home maintenance, that actually comes under homeowner's responsibility. And it is up to the owners to be able to maintain their property. If they don't maintain it in the way the association has, laid out in their rules, then they would get a violation, and there's a process in the violation. If the violation, they will get a friendly reminder, and it will state what they need to address in their landscaping. And then it's 14 days, and then they'll get a second letter. And then the third letter, I believe, goes to the fining committee. The fining committee then reviews it, and the fining committee thumbs up or thumbs down on what they want to do to find the member or not find the member. And a lot of times, going to the fining committee, what happens is a lot of people have already taken care of their violation for the lawn service, and then most of the time they just don't violate, they just don't have the charge.
The lawn service, does that include like treatments and watering of the lawn too? Because, I mean, mowing dirt doesn't.
No, and not much grows in dirt, but the only thing is when they shut off the water in the home, if we don't own that home, we can't turn that water on. And then when we do turn the water on, of course, it's an expense to the association. If we have what's called a COT, which is a certificate of title. We own a certificate of title, which is nothing more than a document, but there still is a first mortgage.
Did everybody address that question? It wasn't a question.
What happens is when we have the CEC committee, which was the Covenant Enforcement Committee, was based on volunteer homeowners that went around the neighborhood and they photographed and documented all this. They had on the iPhone application, we have an iPhone in the office, and all the violations were in there. Every homeowner is listed there, and they would go and take the picture, and it would be time and dated and stamped, and then they would send it into the office, and they would sync everything to it, whatever. Then it would say if it's a system violation, how many days of violation has been in place. And it would also show if they were at the CEC, if they had been fined previously for that violation. The maximum fine is $1,000. If you don't pay it and you don't come to the meeting, it sits as a lien on your house until the moment you come to sell. And when we found that people were trying to sell their home, and then they came in here 2 or 3 days before the home was up for sale, they wanted us, the board at the time, or whoever was sitting on the board, to drop those fees, because they wanted to walk away from it, and the board was very adamant at every time that they were not doing it. They never did it for one, they wouldn't do it for everyone, so everyone was staying the same. You're getting a lien on your house with an 18% interest added on that fine, so whether you realize that there might not be at the end, when they do try to sell the house, they have to come up and pay for the fee. And like she said, you know, it's hard when you don't have access to water it and maintain. Sometimes, a lot of the other homeowners, what we have done and what I've done, when my neighbor's weeds were up like 6 feet next door to me, I called code enforcement. Code enforcement has more teeth than the HOA does. They come out, there's a home here that has over $100,000 in fines.
Rose said that our landscapers will go out and cut the lawn at no charge to us. So why are you having to wait till 6 feet? Like, we have one on our street that, like, I mean, the front door is enclosed with weeds that are growing and it hasn't been addressed. And I think, and I think probably the person's question wasn't, they don't care, as me as a homeowner, I don't care about how you're finding these people. I care about how our community looks. And when these things are distressed, they look abandoned, they probably are abandoned. They're not being done when the lawn service will do it for free.
Well, let me address this as a
Wait,
new, as a
the
new,
one that I
I'm sorry.
called, the one that I called on, because at the time, we didn't have a contract with any of the landscaping companies to do it. That was after, then, Cut came in afterwards, and that was part of the service that they added to us. But before that, we didn't have it, so we were calling code enforcement.
But still, even now, it's
Well,
not.
yeah, let me address this as a new candidate. I think that whoever asked that question, we have to do a significantly better job of preserving our values. And 100%, no matter what it takes, we take care of our community. So we have houses that look like.
People can't afford to do it. I mean, there's people who have lost their job and you don't know what they're doing.
Right, we have houses that look like they're from a
They
Disney.
go fine because they can't afford to cut their grass. I mean,
So we have houses that look like they're from a Disney cartoon. They look even worse from the golf course. We have a house with a chain link fence around it. I talked to the poor lady that lives next to it, who's been trying to sell her house for 4 years. And every time someone pulls up in her driveway, while her house is maintained, and her house is beautiful, they see that chain link fence and they get in their car and walk away. We have to do whatever it takes to preserve our property values. So if we have to go and take care of the house with the ivy growing over the roof, and find them, or even eat it, to preserve our property values, we need to do that. Maybe we give the next door neighbor $20 and hook a hose up to their faucet, and show some common sense and show some grass, and get that going. But every person that drives down Lake Shore sees that house. Every person that drives down the other community sees a house with a chain link fence around it. That's what we need to be doing to maintain our community. Then the other thing that we have to show is a little bit of reason. You live next to a foreclosed house that isn't being maintained. You're doing everything that you can to take care of your house, but the weeds are encroaching on your property. No matter what you do, no matter how many lawn services that you do, Leslie, you're never going to get your house to look good as long as the one next to it is a weed garden. So for us to find somebody who lives next to a house that is abandoned or foreclosed or not maintained shows a complete lack of common sense and judgment. And I've heard instance after instance that we find people who are working hard to take care of their house, but they live next to a house that's in horrific disrepair. And we have to cut them a little bit of slack and not fine them and be reasonable, and then maybe we can maintain it. But if we have first cut or cut all, or whatever they are, supposed to be maintaining it, I come down my street and I see 8-10 feet of weeds on numerous houses. I see the house with the ivy growing across the top, and it doesn't look like a damn thing's been done to it. I come in at night, how many times are the sprinklers spraying in the street? How many times do I wash my car and come in and see sprinklers just spraying the street and with abandoned? You all see all these things. Why haven't we addressed this? That's why we're trying to put a new perspective and a new eye on this.
And the question did confirm it was just for talking about the vacant houses, is that correct? Yeah, and my experience, I have to agree 100%. We just heard how there was a surplus of $300,000. And I've heard, I didn't know that they were finding the good neighbor next door and basically saying, oh, tough, that one's vacant. This other community that I'm involved with.
I need to say something because I was on that fighting committee. I was the one going out and doing those violations.
I'm sure
And
you were.
we did not find people that were next to houses.
I know what he just said, I just heard.
You always go by hearsay. Get the facts.
This is the person right here giving the facts first.
Okay, forget what I heard. The fact is, we had a surplus and we chose to give money back when the community hadn't invested. The community we're on, we go and we make sure everybody, and luckily, our community, the neighbors are nice, and you only have to pay them $20 to plug in the hose. But we maintain those. We do file landscape liens on the foreclosed, because as they've successfully done, if you stick to your bones, when that house finally gets repossessed back by the bank or finally bought by somebody, the HOA does get paid back. But the bottom line is, out of that 300, it's probably only 20, 30 grand max in this whole community. They should have taken 20, 30 grand, 10% of that 300, and ripped the vines down, and talked to the neighbor about trying to water it a little bit, and made an improvement. Just 30 may not have done it all, but it would have made a hell of a lot better improvement than what I've seen when I drove near his house, and which is down, I don't live on Lake Shore, but I saw it, and I'm just like, shocked, right? And
There's a second one right next to it, that's going that way.
the point is, if I'm elected on the board, I'm in favor. I told you at the start of my thing, I'm not here to lower your dues. I don't think it's about, I know he wants $2 lower. I would rather spend $5 more, okay, to have this place look like a top-notch place. We're right across from Lake Nona. Do you think they have that over there? We could have that same thing here. We have a ton of communities. We've run a surplus of 300 grand, and we should utilize our income in a better fashion. And everything he said is absolutely right. We should clean it up and make it better. Now, that's what I was thinking. All right.
Can you put the water on a house that we don't own? Like, could you literally just,
No.
okay?
No. What we've done is we've talked to neighbors, and we actually have a little tank that we can bring over if need be. It doesn't take a lot of water, actually. It actually is just about maintaining it and putting down the weed kill and all of that stuff. And luckily, most of the year, you get enough rain here. So it's about focusing on the problems, not on finding the good guys. Sorry. Do we need everybody to answer that, or do we cover?
I mean, everybody should have an opportunity if they want to speak.
I am just gonna say one thing here, the board is not out here to find people to make money, the board is out to find people to let them know that they are not maintaining their, property as everybody else does. And if that is the procedure by the state and by your documents, and the board cannot do what they want to do. You think we all sit up here and wanna do what we are told we have to do by following the laws and your documents? No, we would like to be able to take your money and go out there and do exactly what both these gentlemen would love to do. But remember.
But you said they'll do it for free,
But when
and no.
remember, excuse me, just one moment, can I Thank you, thank you. Every time we really try to increase our assessments, we have multiple people up here screaming, you raise it 50 cents, we're gonna get mad. So the board did everything to maintain your assessments. I agree, we live in Lake Nona, I have said that on the board. We have an image we should maintain. What are you gonna pay for it? I'm sorry?
You said we do not be there, it's not that same.
He didn't want to interrupt you, but he is bringing up a point that you stated. You did state, and I'm sorry, but you're coming across kind of defensive.
No, I'm not, I'm just trying to tell you what we do.
Right, but you stated that the lawn company, if I heard you correctly,
Correct.
that they will cut the current lawns that are in our neighborhood.
I said cut the lawns, I didn't say cut
Okay.
lines.
Then why are there homes, there's a home in my neighborhood that has weeds this tall?
Is that on your vacant lots?
No, ma'am, it's a home.
It's
So I guess what this gentleman I think was trying to say is, that isn't currently necessarily happening.
Okay. If
So
you see
what
that
do we
happening,
do?
has
What-
anybody called the office?
Does that?
Well, we have, what do we have a management company for?
Doesn't the
They can
management
go around.
company go around on a monthly basis through every
Okay, what we need to know is, maybe they have fined them, maybe they have done everything.
You work for the management company, right? So what have they done? She's an employee of that
Okay,
management.
one thing I wanna say,
I am an employee of that company, and yes, I've already explained that, and everybody here and everybody that knows me knows I work for that company. But I do not work this community, so, no, I talk to the management as the board does, the manager does the job by going out and actually
Well,
violating.
here's what, when you say reporting, as a homeowner, I can tell you that I came in to report a home that doesn't, every winter they don't do their leaves, okay? And they blow down and they get in the sewers and so on. And I was told that I couldn't walk into the office and report it. I needed to, yes. So the management company, it was a young girl, it was not this woman here. But when I, as a homeowner, take the time to stop into the office to try to keep the community nice, and I'm told, no, you have to call this person or do that, I can't take the information. I mean, that's not a friendly property management.
I agree.
So,
Why doesn't the board know this stuff?
yeah, I mean,
Because I've come here and complained numerous times, nothing happened, not a thing, not a thing. Now, I complained once to you, and it was taken care of within 2 hours. Complimented you on that fact. But it doesn't happen. I don't know about the new one, the new person here, but it does not happen,
Well, it hasn't happened.
or hasn't happened, put it that way.
For a fact, I can tell you that 2 weeks ago, Catherine, I did drive through the communities because I do it every so often. I do drive as a homeowner, you have to buy, and you can go online and fill out your own violation form. You can do that, and send it in. What I do, I document it, I do it in writing. I
she
people
took
come
the
in and
time
tell
to
them.
come to the
And what
office
I
because she
did
was
was,
concerned
I
about
went
it.
to, I saw the house on Hartburn, so I did take pictures of it, and I did send it to her.
What's that?
Right, but
She
there-
took the time to come down here to say something, and you overlooked it.
You gotta go online.
Well, again, the issue, we didn't overlook as a board.
Well,
That
somebody
should not-
did.
no, You're correct, it should not have happened. But again, what I encourage everyone to do is come to the board meetings, and if you let us know, we'll do the best we can. Now, that should not have happened. Couple things, we have been looking at other, lawn maintenance companies. We realize that there's holes, massive holes in what this current contract offers. We have been, if you've been to the board meetings, you know that we've interviewed several of them. Now, we're still looking at trying to compare apples to apples to make sure that what we pay for is in line with what we expect. But that is one of the things that's currently on the table and has been for the last few months.
You know, I would also like to say that I interact with Catherine and Diane almost every day. I'm here working out and running two committees. That our new property manager and the assistant property manager are outstanding and they're responsive and they do follow up quickly, and that is completely different from what we had here in the past. But our new people are fantastic. Her door is open, people walk in, she'll, if can, interrupt what she's doing to talk to them. So there is a significant change in our on-site personnel than it was all the years that I had lived here before. And I'm sorry that you're having to live with your predecessors, but that just once again shows how we're managing the property management company. And then to answer Juan's question, I don't want to come here to speak to the board and wait till 11:30 at night to say my piece. So if I'm on the new board, we're gonna come and start a board meeting, and we're gonna recognize the minutes of the previous meeting, and then I'm gonna allow all the new homeowners to talk about their new business right away, so you don't have to sit around for 2 or 3 hours to say five minutes or 2 minutes apiece. So maybe that will generate a lot more excitement and participation. Because the one time I waited around, it was 3.5 hours to speak for 2 minutes. So if I'm on the board, we're gonna accept the meeting and all the things that are required for rules and regulation, and then new homeowners can start to talk and say their piece and go home and have dinner. And then we'll be the ones that stay late. Yeah, that's a pretty big change.
Thank you.
Honestly, it's supposed to be Meet the Candidates where we already have a million questions set, and I love the interaction that we're having, but I feel like we're not getting to questions that we've all put in. So I don't know, but if we could get through a few more questions, I think we could get a broader sense of what's going on with the board. So.
I agree.
Next question for Rose. What Florida statute law have you broken by non-disclosure of self-dealing, referencing your employment by our property management company?
I have disclosed, I just said that to everybody, I don't know where, who's that from?
It doesn't,
I have disclosed. I disclosed.
You would disclose it to the board, what about the members? I don't think anybody else knew that.
I found out last night.
Should I go, may I ask a question to everybody in here? How would you like me to tell each one of you that I'm?
We have a website.
We get email notifications
So you
about
want me
stuff.
to go on the website and put down?
I didn't say that, I said you send out email notifications, you could do that in email.
Right.
She's been the board president for
and I think we need.
Yeah, we always
And
have
we just
issues
now
with
found
it.
There's
out.
minutes out there that document this.
And we
It's
just
not-
now found out, how are we supposed to find that information out?
The point is, and I think we need to look up the statute, and I think it's 7263012.
Alright.
That's one of my questions, because I looked it up. It's not a matter of the board not having a problem with it.
We
Florida
do.
statutes state that you cannot work for a major contract of an HOA and sit on the board. So it doesn't matter
No,
what
it
board it
doesn't
is.
say that.
No, it does not say that.
It does not say that, Lynn.
That's why I just said,
That is
I think
your-
we need to look it up.
Well, regardless.
So that we are clear, because what it says
Let me
is,
explain something.
unless the-
I talked to
can I
the attorneys
finish?
already. No, I'm going to interrupt you.
Oh.
I've already talked to the attorneys.
Well, you interrupted her answering the question, so let her finish the question.
Everybody else is interrupted, but I wasn't allowed to. Okay.
Correct.
It's fine, we all know now. We know now
Well,
because
people
we
say
spent
that.
the time.
Well, how many other people on this board right now are sitting that are affiliated one way or another with First Service Residential and doing a contract? Does anybody know that?
It should be then.
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that.
You know, is there anybody on this board, is there anybody on this board that's a
Your company
candidate,
has anything to do with food service.
where it could appear to be a conflict?
No, with the
of
board.
And disclose. Disclosure is one thing that's very important.
Oh, wait a
This is
minute,
important. I wanna hear
This
this.
is important.
I work for a company called the Williams. 97-year-old construction company headquartered here in Owen.
The Williams?
The Williams.
Okay.
I've been approached, and we are doing work for the Association of Point Siena Villages in Polk County, about 35 miles away. The Association of Point Siena Villages is also managed by First Service. So, do I work for First Service? Not at all.
No.
I have a business relationship with another HOA that's
Right.
hiring us to build a facility.
Right.
Do you
Okay.
participate in like the RFPs and stuff for
No, I
that
had to
contract?
respond to them.
So I'm just asking. So there's a disconnect there where you're not.
Correct.
Right.
You're not posing any financial arrangements, John?
Does your company have any direct contracts with food service?
Or with the HOA.
This HOA, no. In fact, I made one of the first motions I ever made as a board member was that we did not want to have any person in the community have financial interest contract with this particular HOA. As a member of this board and in my service on committees, people ask. Case in point, the lovely new gazebo. Did I liaison with the Buildings and Grounds Committee to help them make selections? Yeah. When they asked me if I would be interested in actually bidding or doing the work, I said, oh, no, because I'm on the board.
That's a
Good,
conflict
good.
of interest.
Mr. Smith, you raised your hand as well.
Who's moderating this?
For, regarding,
Association with the management company?
I have no association with a management company. I have no hidden agenda, and I work for a company that's based in the Netherlands. We have headquarters in New York City and St. Cloud, Minnesota.
The board of judges, I mean, you all must have found out somehow that I work for First Service.
We just found out by asking the question. It wasn't even disclosed on your contract.
But it was disclosed on
Information
Mr.
sheet.
It was disclosed on Mr. Pino. The president and her husband, my husband just got hired too, by First Service. You know, that is your opinion, and my opinion is I bring a lot to the table being with First Service. I can make sure that we know what's going on.
Why don't you let the homeowners decide that? And what were you just saying about Mr. Pina and somebody else having a, working for First Service?
I didn't say Mr. Pino. They knew.
Okay.
It was out in the,
So we should just go by gossip.
so that,
She said.
I have no affiliation with First Service or do any business with the community, but having been an officer of a publicly held company, if Catherine and I had a business interest together, or Catherine's employer and I had an interest together, or if Catherine and I were related, I would be precluded from having any interaction with her. I would not be able to delegate or to give her any direction or anything. And that's the way businesses are run, and that's the way publicly held companies are run, is number one, it would be disclosed to all shareholders. And number two, if I had some affiliation with her, I couldn't even give her work or advice or direction or even make a subtle comment to her.
But what you're saying is you would disclose it to the board.
To all shareholders, which would be every resident in this community.
Right.
And when
I
you have
guess
a
the
public
point-
company, every stockholder.
The point here is
Sure.
one disclosed it to the board, the other has not.
The point is, this is a voluntary role, and if she's taking a 4-page thing, if First Service was the guy that picks tulips out back for $10 a month, that'd be one thing, but First Service, I think, is one of the highest paid contractors, if not the highest paid contractor in their budget. And the fact that the two family members, president and the husband, are employed by the largest contract is a conflict of interest. In corporate governance, our stock exchange and our securities commission would never allow that. It is forbidden. And I think this lady is correct, that the current HOA rules, because there, as you know, Mr. Ween even told us, there's been a lot of changes in the last year that precludes her. If this was voluntary and I saw a need that I'm gonna go get a job and get paid, I would
release myself of my duty, especially knowing when there's people like Mr. Penna spending his money saying, I'll get on the board, or
Mr.
him.
Pino,
We got it.
We gave you $1,500, you wanted
You gave,
So we gave you.
I gave up my case because my lawyer told me not to give in, to go to court and prove in court, and you would have paid all the money and more. But I hear 4, 1, and 5 seats. Yeah, let's go on to questions.
We're not gonna go into this any further, let's move forward.
To all, how does a proxy work? Do I have to bring it on election day? How does a proxy work?
Proxy is when you assign someone else to cast your vote, you can't come in here.
What is the process, how do you do it?
You go to a neighbor, you go to a friend, and you fill out the name of the person that you want to carry the proxy in for you, and you sign and you date it, your lot number goes on in there, and then that person comes in with your proxy, and they vote for you.
Right, so if I may, because this was one of the settlement agreements, is in the past, they used to have bar-coded proxies so that it made it very difficult if you lost your mailing or something to give your proxy. So to back up, what is a proxy? A proxy is a legal designation of your vote to somebody else. So let's say you can't make it, you're out of town, right? And so I say, I will vote for you, I'm gonna be there. You can take a proxy, and it doesn't have to be the one they mail you. It has to be anyone that's legal that basically says, this proxy is for the purpose of this meeting on this date, and I'm naming this person to represent me at the meeting. That's all it is. It's like a power of attorney, but it's a one-time focus.
So if I gave you a power of attorney, or
A
a
proxy.
proxy, could I put on there, this is who I want it?
Correct, that's correct. You can specify exactly how that proxy is used.
However, that person's not required to vote it.
follow it. He can still vote it any way he wants.
If it's a general proxy.
Correct.
It's a general proxy and there's a limited proxy.
There's a general proxy and there's a limited proxy. A general proxy gives the person who is going to be your proxy holder the right to vote the way he or she chooses to vote. A limited proxy can list every candidate. You can choose the candidate that you want, but the limited, when they bring it in, turns into a general, it will get turned in as like a ballot. But if there are any other matters at hand that need to be voted and you're not here and you gave your proxy, that's when the general side of the limited takes over. That person who is your proxy holder then becomes the person to vote for any other matters than the election.
So I heard somebody tonight asking about how the voting process was going. So maybe we just, because I think the document maybe was a little unclear, so you can just let everybody know the times and how it works, just so everybody's clear.
Yes, we're opening up the meeting at any time. The voting can start at that time. You have to sign in, bring your proxies in. You'll get a ballot when you hand in your proxy.
So only, you don't have to turn in a proxy if you are voting for yourself, you can just come in and sign in. You don't need a proxy.
You don't, but
So
you
she's
can
incorrect
bring
in that.
in
You have a
your
proxy if you're
proxies
voting
at
for
the
somebody
same
else.
time, and you'll get the ballot. And then at 6 o'clock, the last person at the table, wherever it shall be, that will stop the voting, the sign-in and the voting. You won't get any more proxies, because you have to sign in to get your ballot. 12 to 6 to sign in and get your ballot.
So if you're in line at
But
6 o'clock, you can't vote?
No.
I'm asking.
After 6 o'clock.
Right, but
At 6 o'clock.
There'll be a person, a monitor there that will cut the line off.
Okay.
At
So
6 p.m.
whoever is last in
Correct.
at that time.
And can you drop your proxy, do you have to wait till then 6:01 to turn in the proxy, or can you show up at 1?
No, you can do it.
You can get your proxy, your ballot, your ballot, you get, hi, I'm here and I've got your proxy, so I'll sign in for me, and then I turn in her proxy and I sign in for her, so now I've got 2, you're gonna give me 2 ballots. Can I go ahead and vote, drop them in the vote box and wait? Okay.
Excuse me,
Yes.
I thought it was 7 o'clock, the last time I was here at a meeting, it was 7 o'clock that it was supposed to be voting. Now it's 6 o'clock, why the change?
No, there was a stop at 6 o'clock, that was at the last board meeting, at the board meeting and all of these meetings. We used to have it at 7.
Because people come home from work, they can't vote.
No, your quorum is established by the number of proxies that are presented.
It's not true. It's not number of proxies, it's number of people.
Number of ballots.
Number of people that have,
What is happening is this has come to our manager, and we sent it to the attorney, and the attorney made a suggestion, and it will be discussed among all board members tomorrow about allowing people to use a limited proxy.
Limited proxy, what does that mean?
Where you'll be able to vote, come in at any time, because our hours are at nighttime too. We have 7 o'clock Monday,
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 Wednesday.
and Monday and Wednesday, right? And then they're here on Saturday.
Right, either.
So you can come in and actually do your voting right then and there too on a limited proxy. But this is gonna be discussed among the board members tomorrow, because we have
But her
to.
question wasn't addressed, why did it change from 6 to 7? I'm sorry, 7 to 7.
We also increased it
We're
from 12 to 6.
12 to 6, so
We're gonna have it
we're
open
12
till
to
5.
6. Instead of 5:30 to 7, we opened it 12 to 6.
So you made it earlier, you made it shorter, but her issue was.
We made it longer.
It's longer.
longer.
It's on a Monday when people are at work.
That's what I'm saying. It was
So you
supposed to
can
be,
come.
it was supposed to be from 12 o'clock to 7 o'clock. And we said terrific, because people coming from work, they have time to come in and vote. I'm sorry, I was at the meeting. We were all discussing it. Okay, don't tell me no, I was here. And I thought, wonderful, because 7 o'clock is good. People have a chance to come home and they can come and vote, okay? Now it's 6 o'clock, and that's rush, most people, I'm not working, but a lot of people do here. You know,
What if you could vote on Saturday?
well, Saturday is a family day. People don't wanna come in and vote, I'm sorry.
We're open
I
Monday,
hear you.
Monday night, Wednesday night, and Saturday. You can come in with your
7 o'clock,
proxy.
and what's that extra hour? I don't know why.
Well, yeah, but you have 2 days that you can even come in on Monday and
Who
Wednesday.
knows that, incidentally?
And nobody knows
I
that.
don't know anybody on Friday or
Add more
Saturday.
confusion.
I don't think anybody knows it. We know it now. Who else knows it?
Well, the problem is, objection by law, have to give 30-day notice if you're gonna amend the voting hours. You know?
14, change it back to 7, I think that's just what they do right now.
That's what I thought it was, because I'm with her, she was told,
Is
we're gonna
that
have an
possible?
open period from 12 to 7 to do it. And that's where I was, I don't know when it changes.
Well, if we haven't had a forum in many years, why make it more restrictive, right?
If anything, you should tell people 6 and then make it 7, and that way.
Instead of arguing this and that, is there a possibility that we can extend it to 7? I think that would make people happy. That's all.
That would have to be brought up for board meeting.
Which is tomorrow.
But again, back to the Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, I bet you very few people know that.
They have to get 14.
Well, they haven't done that yet.
By law anyway, they still have to have a board
Oh, you
meeting
haven't
tomorrow,
done
and
it.
make a decision on whatever they're gonna do to make it more homeowner friendly.
Did you get answers to that question about proxies?
Yes.
All right.
Well, if it's
Good question.
14, wait a minute, if it's 14 days, 14 and 10 is 24, we're voting on the 23rd.
That's my whole.
So how's that gonna work?
That's another impact.
I'll figure that out.
We
So the next question I
a little
have,
bit of math problem.
the next question I have is for Don. Don, the first question is, does your work schedule conflict with HOA board duties? And your question number 2, what will you do to improve our HOA?
All right, first of all, I'm an airline pilot, and my schedule is flexible. Unfortunately, when I'm on the road, I'm on the road, I'm gone. When I'm home for big blocks of days. I have flexibility to move my schedule around, so I don't think it's impact on making meetings. We can also teleconference if for some reason I can't make a trip or something popped out, the special meetings. Teleconference, so I can work around that. I don't think it impacted. The second question was to improve the community. What I would do, I'd like to bring the golf course owner in and get him in the dialogue and improve, have him improve his property. I'm tired of looking at the ponds around here that they maintain, that they're not maintaining. You look at our ponds, ours are really nice, do a great job. they're on a maintenance schedule, looks like they come here every other month or every quarter they're coming. I can tell you the golf guy does it maybe once a year, so they're not being maintained, so we need an honor for that, it really needs to be painted. You know, I talk to guys that work that golf here, they say, yeah, you know, it's not the best golf course, but the price is cheap, they get steak on Friday, so that's why they come. You know, I heard, oh, Eagle Creek is very nice, we love golfing over there. So you hear this stuff, it's like, oh, you know, the golf course doesn't bring our community down, so we need to bring into dialogue and not just shun them and say, oh, we can't deal with them. You know, we need to bring them in. And, that would be my big focus, doing that, and also probably improving some of our, structures. Maybe adding on to our pool area, putting in some shaded area. What the board has done with our play set out there, I think it looks great, but I think we need to protect the children, put a nice shade over it, like you see. You know, we don't want to get skin cancer or anything. I brought that up years ago too to the board, that got kind of shunned put aside. But if we can do something like that, that'd be fantastic and help improve our veterans of our property.
I have a question for Mr. Pina. What schools does your children attend?
A Catholic school.
This question is for all. How many board meetings have you attended in the last 12 months, not counting the election or meet the candidate?
Sorry, what, I didn't hear the second one?
How many,
This
how
is for
many-
everybody or just?
For everyone.
Okay.
How many board meetings have you attended in the last 12 months, not counting the election and meet the candidate day, which is today? John?
I haven't missed one.
So 11.
I have,
Actually, more than that, because there's been more
And you have
than
your
12 board meetings.
And your committees too, so.
I have attended several, I don't know how many, they kind of run together, especially the one that went till almost midnight. And then, of course, I've got the fitness committee, and then we're building this whole safety committee. I have no children, and I'm taking applications.
Mine are UCF and Valencia.
I have attended all minus one.
Let's go. Except for the one when my husband was in the hospital, and I was sitting there second.
All the board meetings, 2 of them from the hospital, via telephone.
I believe it's 3, might be 4, but because I wasn't sure which one may not qualify, but I say 3.
Yeah, I would say 2, and that's been because the meetings are on Mondays, and I usually am out of town on Mondays, so.
Thank you. This message is for Jeannie. How long have you served as our HOA VP? Second question, what training do you complete for HOA director? When?
Completed the HOA director from another management company, and this is going to be a certification requirement for all homeowner association directors now. It was completed in April of this year. Certificate was passed to the management company and is on file. I've been the vice president for 3 years.
Mr. Pina, question for you. Prior experience with Vizcaya, is that condo or HOA? What will you improve?
I am on the Master Vizcaya Homeowners Association Board, which oversees the 6 other HOAs and a COA that's in the Vizcaya complex. The question is, what have I improved there, or what would I improve here?
I guess here.
The top priority, I've already said, which is the same at that complex, is security. We employ Orange County, just as I see this community does, for nightly patrols. We actually complement it, they're very expensive, with our own patrols on not so busy nights. But we have every night in the Vizcaya community, we have improvement. We have an extensive video and what they call smart cameras that actually recognize if patterns change, and that brings that up to the guard. We have a great working relationship with Orange County, so in being in this role here with North Shore, I would see that as a top priority, is to enhance the relationship with Orange County. The captain and their team is excellent. We would also look at improving security via electronics. And then as Don says, you know, my home also is on the golf course. I think the golf course is a revenue-making business, and they should be contributing, not taking away from our community. Another major improvement is addressing the challenging job of the traffic issues with the school. Again, what I would improve is listening, as Rose said. I think strategy and promoting feedback from the community is very good, but isolating to 3 or 4 major topics like security, like the golf, like the parking, and then that be the first year agenda. And of course, the landscape is like an ongoing maintenance thing that is always an agenda. So hopefully that answered that question.
Thank you. This question's from Maria. When did you serve on the board? Question number 1. And question number 2, what do you see that needs to be changed?
The second, I don't remember exactly when I served on the board, but I think under 3 years. I have been the youngest one on the board from everybody else. Then I stepped down and Juan Mercado took my place. Improvement, when I was sitting on the board, we had 3 meetings with strategic management, with First Services at the time. And it was strategic management planning that we did, and we came with like a 1-year plan, 2 years, 3 years, but we wanted to see, one of the things was the playground equipment that's been put there. We've talked about what we can see the goals are for the next 5 years, how we would expand this year, make the pool, what we can do bigger and bring in more events and activities to the community. Social committee, I would like to see more involvement. I tried to get a lot of the seniors involved, and I got some responses back, but then they didn't want to come out because they were going to therapy, they couldn't get together at the same time to do something during the daytime with them. I just spoke to one of my neighbors who's a crafter and teaches craft, and I said, you know, how would you be receptive if we can even do like, even if we charge like $5 for supplies, and the kids and parents come in and the homeowners, and we can do craft for a day, and do something to get the kids and the parents, grandparents, everybody involved, and work with that. And tonight, I think the social committee has been trying to come up with different ideas to get the kids involved, the parents, and do more activities for the HOA. What happens is also that the money from the rental room is the only thing that we can take out of to do events. So if it doesn't get rented out that often and we don't have the money there, we can't take it out of our operating expenses to throw a Halloween or a barbecue party for the kids or a pool party. I know years back, my husband and I, and a couple of the parents from Heron Point and Osprey had some teams, and we would do a Friday night barbecue out by the pool, and we would chaperone the kids. So we usually had about 30 kids would come out here, and we would do that. If it rained, then we would do movies inside here. We had popcorn, we had sodas for them, and that was all provided by us.
Thank you. This question's for Juan. First question, how long have you served on the board? Question number 2, do you receive free or reduced cost loan service as board member?
I started on the board for just under a year, and no, I did not receive anything free or reduced.
They pay more.
This question from Mr. Pena, will the board post street signs? Was that the question you asked?
Yeah, so my question is, I said it earlier, I'm asking the board, what different will you do than a normal board meeting to promote this election? And the question specifically is, will the board consider putting street signs, as you do when the, right, when the gate changed, they put a street sign at the thing, something like that.
They're already ordered, waiting to be used right before the election, and
I have it in my office.
Right, well, that's what I just was asking, because I'm hoping that there will be
I have it in
a
my
strong
office.
effort to get a quorum.
Did you notice that every one of the meet the candidate signs have gone missing?
No, that's not true. No, it's not.
Go down, Osprey's missing, one in Motor Creek was missing, and it's gone now, you go by, and half sparrow landings are missing.
There's a tree that fell next to my house.
So,
I was at my office at 5:30 this morning, and I just got here because it's across town, thanks to the rain and all that traffic is horrendous, so I haven't even noticed.
What are you saying maybe happened with some of these old ones?
We don't know.
What was the point of
They
bringing that
were,
up?
they were posted, they were put there, they slide in, and then all at once they disappear. The point is, we have problems with vandalism that occur, and we can't seem to find the source. Go ahead.
So I know in our neighborhood, I saw it on the floor next to the gate, so I picked it up and moved it to the side so that people would stop running over it. And then I saw, like, a couple hours later, somebody actually had put it back in the thing. Then it was on the floor again, so moved it back over to the side.
Are you sure they fit?
I didn't see the other, but I know that when we did
Okay, we
like
got
a
the answer
social,
though.
we
Thank
did
you.
a last
okay, excuse me, I'm sorry, I have come to previous board meetings, I have actually, provided solutions that were safe and did not, have things that fell out of,
Out of brackets.
out of brackets. And the board chose not to go with them. I don't know what happened with it, but there are people in this community that have brought solutions and suggestions to you, and it hasn't been addressed, or it's been addressed and these signs are falling down. So, okay, yes, they're falling down, but look at a solution that's more permanent than something that just hangs out there that can be completely removed by anybody or by natural sources.
Zip ties maybe. No.
Those are not the only signs that have been taken out, because every event that we put out signs for, they disappear.
Could be
Garage sales, they've been taken down, you put them up, and then you drive 2 hours later, and the sign is gone.
So we all agree we're gonna look at that issue going forward, so we can have better communication. We're going next thing.
Question, from Mr. Pina, Mr. Baker. Why did you say before you did not really want to run for the board, as you want to, again, sorry, Mr. Pina?
I'm sorry,
I don't,
chicken
sorry.
My dad's a physician, so I write like him, I guess, but, my question was, Mr. Baker, on the last go-round, you didn't submit your interest to run on the board. And again, this is some hearsay, but it was because you threw your name in at the last second because there was no one else running. Was that true? Did you ever make a comment, or, you didn't put your name in, and then at the last second, you put it in because there wasn't anybody really running, and you needed to fill the vacant seat. And so my question, if that's true, let me first get that.
This election, we had all of us involved. I brought my candidate form to the meeting and turned it in. The previous election that was attempted, again, I was at a board meeting a couple of days before the deadline. The question was raised whether we had candidates applying. At that time, you had not enough candidates had applied before that deadline, and there was not even going to be an election. People asked me if I was going to run, and I said, yes, I would run. Turned in that form, designated time. Now, as luck would have it, when I turned mine in that same day, 2 or 3 other people turned their names in. So you ended up with enough, or more than enough.
But I'm not quite sure. Well, the point was, is you've heard from some of these new folks that we feel, and again, I'm happy at not being me, but I just feel that the folks who've been here, like Mr. Dean and yourself, who've been here 6 years, it's time to step aside. It's a volunteer role. I can tell you, we're at the other place. If someone says, look, you've been here 3 years, I want to go, I would go. I don't get paid for this. You don't get paid for this. And I have heard, and again, rightfully or wrong, I mean, someone's over here whispering right now saying, no, it's not that way. If you weren't really interested in running, why are you running now? Like, why wouldn't you step aside and let some of these newer people, like Juan's been on a year, I think that provides for great continuance. As I heard your comment, what might have been that, or someone thinks that way. And so I just think that I just question why you want to be on still, when folks may not want you on.
Well, there's some people that don't want to be on. There are also people in this community that have strongly expressed to me that they would like I would like to be able to move on. If the community wants me to serve for another year or so and help in the transition between a mix of old and new, I'm willing to do that if the community votes me on. If the community doesn't vote me on, I'm also, very active in other activities. It's not gonna break my heart. I'm here to serve the community. If the community thinks that I'm a great asset to assist other people blend old and new, I'm willing to do that. If the community has other aspirations, I understand.
Bishop, that raises a good question. All the 5 that are elected, for how long? How long is the term that they would do? The whole new board was wiped out. Is it a 3-year term for the whole board? No.
The stagger has to be reset, and it's reset based on highest vote getter, the 5th, vote getter.
So the highest vote getter will be the president?
No.
Highest 2 get 3 years, next one down get 2
Two
years.
highest vote getters will get the 3, third and fourth vote getters will get the 2, and the 5th will get the 1.
Let's see.
And to clarify on what Mr. Pino was saying on his question, he was referring to the night of the last election. Mr. Baker made the statement that the only reason he ran was because no one else stepped up to the plate.
Correct.
And at that time, people said that maybe you should step down, and since it's a volunteer, then walk away, and he says, I will, if other people put their names in for, and this is what he's asking, and this is what the comment that he was made, that he doesn't remember.
Okay, this message, this question is for Maria. Why are you running for the board again after you have resigned 3 times in the past 2?
I never resigned from the board, except for the last meeting, after all the controversy was going on, I was told that the reason why no one served on any committee was because of me, I stepped aside to see what happens. Guess what? Same people were still on the same committees, and no one else was really volunteered to serve on any committees, so apparently I was the problem, so I decided to come back on again and continue to do my best. I'm not here to run away from the community, I'm not here to be afraid of anyone, I'm here to make what is best for this community. I have the best interest in this community, I have 2 grandchildren that live with me, that I know I wanna raise here, and I'm not walking away from that. Because I left and I resigned, I did it because of comments that were made, and I said, okay, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, and I'll walk away from it and see if that happens, and I still see that it's the same people volunteering and involved, so I wasn't the issue, it must be somewhere else the issue lies.
So I'm confused, are you allowed to walk away from the board and then decide you want to go back on the board? Why didn't the board fill the vacant seat when she resigned?
They did. One more time took it.
She's allowed to run again. She's
So I made the decision to run again.
She said that she resigned and then she decided to come back.
That's today. She's running again.
But she's resigned 3 times.
I was on the board once.
Can't
On the board
resign
once.
3
That's the only
times.
time I
Did you
resigned.
verbally resign, or 3 times?
No.
Did you vocalize that you did not, no longer
I
wish to be
sent
on
an
the board?
email saying
Sent
that I
an email.
resigned.
1 time. Did you ever vocally, did anybody else on the board hear her, John shaking his head yes?
Rather vociferously in the strategic planning session that she talked about, she got up and stormed out of the room.
Did she verbalize that she wanted to resign?
I didn't resign, John. What I said was that when we were at the strategic meeting, you had your little ways, and everything that we said, you went against it because you didn't like the way that I proposed some things. And because you have an issue with me all the time, I'm not gonna run away from you. I'm tired of running from you and being here and being put down by you at every other meeting.
Seems like he's speaking very softly and you're getting at it.
All right, I'm gonna play president here, so to move on, please, you don't need arguing, we're all about here.
Sorry, I thought I read twice in the board meeting minutes that you resigned twice. I thought I read that in the posted board meeting.
Yep.
And I think others have too.
Well, maybe she doesn't know that one.
That's the one she missed.
Do you really have to go in this direction?
Next question.
This is for all. Are you for or against putting security cameras on the gates?
Four.
They work with them. I have 3 all the way.
How many boards do we have?
Okay, so I have one in
Yeah, so why hasn't it been done in the last Saturday?
Right.
They have got a
Get
bid.
it through, Chuck, we tried, I have all the paperwork since 2008 when we tried, and it wouldn't
got a unanimous board right here that would have voted it in. Anyways, going forward,
The issue was, when the cost was presented to the community during financial planning for the budget, then all of a sudden the community decided they
They
weren't.
did not want it. They wanted to increase
Yeah,
the
yeah.
security.
Everybody wants it until they find out what the bill is.
It's a
What
big
was the bill roughly back then?
Over $35,000.
And how much do we pay for, patrol? Roughly. I mean, if you don't know, I'm sending this.
Patrol budget.
You're gonna still need
I'm just asking.
control.
Yeah, the patrol budget is, I think, 60,000. So the question is, if you want to substitute one for the other, you could, but everybody, when they were polled and we've had budget planning sessions, people preferred the off-duty patrolling rather than the camera.
Wasn't there a budget for like 100,000 one year for patrol?
Yeah, 2012 had that, but I don't think it all got spent.
So it didn't get spent, but there was a budget for security. So why didn't that, then, if you had that money, get put into?
Part of that was used for the enhanced security of this facility here. So it was used in this sense, enhanced, just not the gates.
The cameras are proposed because the gates are being vandalized, right? So how do you keep the cameras from being vandalized? You're gonna spend $35,000 on cameras, and you're gonna have to.
I think the cost would be lower now.
Fix the camera. So next question, this is for the current board question. Beginning Friday, March 21st, the office hours became Monday through Friday from 8:30 to 5 and closed Saturday and Sunday. These new hours are very similar to the business hours, meaning the residents have their own jobs. How can the office support the needs of our residents with these limited hours? I believe you.
We've already done that. We've already increased the hours. The others don't ever increase or change back.
So what are the current hours?
Well, there's really the two-fold answers. Okay. For a short period of time, that's all that the hours were. Because about that date in March, the entire staff here at the office had turnover.
Resigned or fired?
One young lady had a little baby, and the other two people transferred within first service. So we now have Catherine and Diane. We had to then get them in transition, but then, a week, 2 weeks ago, whenever the last board meeting, we have filled another part-time position to recreate that evening and Saturday service that everybody wants to have. So there now is that third person to provide that evening and Saturday service.
Monday, so we're training and starting Monday will be from 1 to 7, Wednesday 1 to 7, and Saturday 8:30 to 5.
So was that communicated with the community in any way?
That will be emailed tomorrow. We wanted to make sure she was properly trained in order to leave her alone after 5 o'clock. So she is done, and that will go out tomorrow.
And then, if we're all addressing this question, I said good riddance. The two people that were here before, the two Lawrence, everyone that I saw interact, myself included, felt like you were interrupting their day, interrupting their Facebook, uncooperative, sullen. I see more good work out of Catherine and her assistant in the month and a half that they've been here than I saw in years out of the two Lawrence. People come in, the door's open, they're welcome. We give her from our committee a checklist of things that need to be addressed, and she's on top of it. I can't even come back and remind her of it because she's already addressed it. So we finally got a good property manager and a good property assistant, and I hope we keep her. But the two people that were before them were just horrifically bad. And I have no tie to first service, and I'm saying that, so good people now.
Did they resign or were they fired? Or they asked to leave?
They requested transfers and are working at other properties, is my understanding.
So why did they request a transfer? So if they were so bad and we knew they were so bad, why weren't they asked to leave? And why did they then request a transfer?
Lauren Rodriguez was able to transfer to corporate headquarters as an administrative assistant to the administrative executive. Increase for her. Increase in pay. A good move for her. Lauren Wheeler decided to go back to portfolio. So
Somebody
she's got
asked though.
two communities.
That's not the question he asked. He said if they were so awful, why weren't they asked to leave before?
Why weren't they asked to leave?
This problem.
Was it known to you and the board that they were on Facebook or allegedly on Facebook and doing these things?
I never heard of that. That's all these, yeah, I've never heard of that.
If they're so bad, why corporate time, give it a motion, because she said the board.
Okay, next question.
They asked for the transfer, they found better positions that they wanted to go back to, so you're not gonna hold them back.
To Jane, you mentioned you have taken previous board meetings from your bed or hospital bed. Do you anticipate having to do this through the next 3 years?
Well, I don't know that I'm gonna have 3 years term, but I am dedicated to the community. The reason that I said hospital bed, that was the election meeting that I was involved in, and I thought that I should participate. The second thing is, I guess I have a dedication, or have thought that, I ought to be able to attend the meeting if I'm not on my deathbed, and I wasn't. So I was recuperating from it's a chronic disease, but basically, I couldn't make it here for the meeting, but I could make it on the telephone.
That's dedication.
Thank you. To Rose, as a management employee of the company that runs North Shore Lake Park, how can you be an effective leader? Will you be recusing yourself from any or all decisions involving them?
I do. When the contractor that took her service, when I was working with them, I excused myself with the board's permission with any and all meetings pertaining to any contracts at that time. I abstained from anything, and it's all in the minutes, that has to do with first service. My board ethics, I'm truthful, I'm honest, and that's the way I live, and that's who I am. I would never, ever give up a decision that has to do with first.
Does the board, I mean, I know it's an odd number, 5. So if you excuse yourself,
Or abstain?
right, but that leaves 4, I mean, what, no one can predict what the odds are, I guess, of a split decision, like if they were looking at management.
Oh, on management, one board goes in.
With like property management contracts.
Wouldn't the Robert's rules apply? Either the president, if the president excuses the vice president will carry 2 votes, it breaks the tie. We shouldn't need a tie.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
thank you, thank you.
It is governed.
Who was the vice president at that time? Hey, so were you unaware of that rule?
Oh, no,
No, he said that one time.
One time,
I know,
but it
but-
wasn't property management,
No, it wasn't related.
it wasn't really.
But it doesn't have to be related in
I
order
see.
for Robert's rules to kick in.
I see what you're saying.
So I'm just asking why it wasn't done.
Robert's rules, I'm not clear on that myself, I don't recall that being 2, but if you say it's 2, I'd have to look it up. Read it, and see what the definition of exactly what it is.
It is mentioned in our bylaws about Robert's rules.
Correct.
Right.
You're absolutely right,
Yeah,
we
one
can
six
use
years
Robert's
ago,
rules.
that.
I'm not saying we can't.
The next question, to the entire board. How have you had such a small failure handling one of the most chronic issues with the school backup? Twice a day, let alone the hundreds of additional new students scheduled to increase enrollment for the next school year?
The board and the community have been actively involved with the school and the school board in trying to resolve traffic. I've attended several public meetings, both just as a member of this community, as well as lobbying Commissioner Thompson and other people as a member of this board. The challenge that we're faced is that this board doesn't own that school. And it's not a charter school owned by a private company that's, that private company being North Shore of Lake Hart, where we can demand that school, make changes. That they answer to the Orange County Public School Board. So, we've been lobbying, we've been making efforts to help them come up with other solutions, recommended solutions. But we also have the challenge of that they answer to a different master than we are. So we have influence, but we don't have authority over them. And I understand everybody's frustration with that. I live about as far away from this Brett Center building as you can, short of the place with Sparrow Landing. So I use the back entrance 99% of the time. All we can do as a community is continue lobbying as a community, so that it's not just John Baker as a board member or John Baker as a citizen. It's all of us having the strength of numbers to continue getting the school board to understand what they're doing now doesn't work. They've tried a new change here recently. It seems to be helping. But we're also going to have the challenge for a year or so that this school is going to increase the population in the short term until two other schools, well actually three other schools. There's one scheduled down here by Mon Park. There'll be one in Eagle Creek. There'll be yet another elementary in the Laureate Park section of Lake Nona. But they're not coming online right now. They're a year or two in the building cycle away. So in the short term, we're going to have some challenges to deal with. And we as a community have to continue as one large 1,049 member voice, keep the heat on Orange County public schools and Orange County traffic engineers to come up with better solutions than what's going on right now. That also being said, part of our problem is ourselves. The bulk of the traffic problem is ourselves. And the old adage about walking uphill to school both ways barefoot in the snow starts coming to mind, that some people are sitting in traffic at 1 in the afternoon when their child doesn't get out until 2:30 or 3. I wish I had the luxury to waste that time. So we also as a community need to start thinking about how we can be smart and not contribute to the problem.
I've got three things that I would do. Number one, I don't think tearing out the median, which is a very, very aesthetic and beautiful part of our community, particularly when we're trying to retain property value. So I don't think tearing out the median is the solution. I'd like us to pursue putting a gate on the Kirby Smith side to cut through traffic and use that gate for residents. Make a significant amount of the school backup egresses from Kirby, but we have other roads here in this community that we maintain and manage, and we can work with them on that. And Eagle, Stony Brook, Eastwood all have private gates in their community, and maybe we have to man that gate, maybe we don't. I'd like to put a gate there. I think that's a large portion of the people who don't respect our community, that speed through the community. I think that's a lot of the backup. I'd like to work with the off-duty and on-duty officers. There's not a community school in Orange County, there's not a public school in Orange County that allows backup to block a road like this one does. It's against the law. So we should start to enforce no stopping, parking, or standing on that road. And just like John says, people start to queue up an hour and a half to 2 hours early to pick their kids up. We shouldn't allow people to block the one road in and out from that side of the community. So we can work with our law enforcement officers to maintain that. We can look at putting the gate on the Kirby side. We've had 2 golf carts that have been totaled by people speeding through the crosswalk. People hurt, went to the hospital. And I think a lot of those are people that don't live in North Shore, that don't respect our community. And this is a chronic issue that wastes hours of everyone's time every day.
What prevents the officers from doing that now?
Well, I was told by one of the off-duty guys that they were asked not to do it by the board or previous board. I didn't hear that firsthand, so I can't address that. But at one time, they were prepared to start ticketing cars that were blocking the road. And they were asked not to do it, whether it's the current or previous. I can't even address it, I'm not going to point any fingers. But we can put some signs up there that say, no stopping, standing, parking, and start to alleviate, give everyone a week's due notice.
I'm very confused. We had the county commissioner came out, they did a whole presentation
can't do anything with that boulevard, that is county property. We have no say as to what they do with that island.
Well, we did, we voted, a bunch of people voted.
And it's out of the thing where they're gonna take out, put a
So,
lane in there.
is that happening, or is that not, I'm confused, is that not happening?
It's on the county's list.
It's happening, but with 200 to 300 more students attending that school, that is not an appreciable fix to get the issue. So the school is made, that school was designed to draw the traffic in on Moss Park Road, and that's really where the egress and departure should be, is off Moss Park Road, not coming into our
Well,
community.
you know, but this was all predicted. If you guys, did anyone attend the school board meetings 3 years ago? Because they proposed many options, and North Shore as a community decided not to have any relief. And it was warned that the population of the school was gonna increase drastically.
Well,
So,
the schools that are built inside communities were mandated to be the community, the people that live in the community will be walkers. Okay? That's why these schools are built in these communities to alleviate traffic. But like Dave was saying, we're our worst enemy. North Lake Park is his worst enemy. If you go on North Lake Park, you'll see the same problems that you see right here in North Shore. We're our worst enemies. I mean, you have people that live right there in Heron Point. I see it when I work up here. That will drive their car and come right here and wait for 2.5 hours to pick up their youngin' to drive right back here. How lazy is that? No wonder society today in the United States is obese. Okay? And I get sick of it being a homeowner in here, but yet I'm also restricted for what the HOA wants me to do, is make sure that that parking lot isn't filled up with people that come from other subdivisions that think it's their right to come up here and park here or take their kids to this playground and so forth and so on. So you might call me an asshole and I kick you out, but that's all right. I live here, I got a vested interest. You speed in my community and I'm working, I see it, you're gonna get a ticket. I don't care if you're my next door neighbor. Welcome to Orlando, welcome to North Shore, because Mike Johnson lives here and I've got youngins that I've raised here. I don't care. Respect our community. So that's why we have law enforcement here. If you don't want law enforcement here, great. I don't care. I'm still going to do my job whether I get paid by this community or not. But we're our worst enemy. Okay, everyone here, and I've been listening to you, and it's, now I've got on my soapbox. We're bickering amongst one another. Okay, let's have some constructive criticism. Let's fix this problem. Let's get some people on the board that love their community, that that does not have a hidden agenda. Okay, and let's make this community what I wanted it when I first came here 10, 11 years ago. Let's stop arguing, let's stop bickering, let's just fix this problem the best way we can. And it's not going to be overnight. It's just like working out. Doesn't come in a shake, doesn't come in a pill, doesn't come in a dream. It comes with hard work. And if you're not willing to work hard, then you're shit out of luck.
Thank you. I'm actually out there stickering vehicles in the morning from 8 to 9 every morning. People just cutting through, so we do have an issue. I have two remaining questions for Rose. The first one is, how can you be an effective leader, board member, and board president when you cannot control the meetings, even maintaining civil dialogue, blatantly abuses behavior to your board members and residents? Doesn't this demonstrate a complete lack of ability and management skills?
Daddy, can you put pictures here? Is if I don't allow them to speak and speak their mind, then I don't give them the chance that we don't want to listen. If you come up here, we are yelled at all the time by multiple members, constant. I have been spit at, I have been given, yeah, I have.
No, I didn't
More
say
than-
word.
no, I know.
It's
And I'm just
disgusting.
saying, it is disgusting, but I'm talking about adults. I have been given the finger multiple times. I have been talked to with vulgar language that actually I don't appreciate. It's never, I wouldn't be brought up with that type of language. But it's not just from the adults, it's from the what you want. It helps us make a decision. As far as yelling at board members, people yelling at board members, we get it all the time. If we tell them to be quiet, it's, you don't wanna listen to me. That's why I don't come to these board meetings. You let them speak, we get, board meetings are too long, but we're doing business. This board only meets at board meetings. We do nothing in emails. Occasionally when we have to, we do. Majority of the time, it's right here. So when we get those board packets and we review them at home, when we wanna discuss them, 5 members come up here and discuss them. That's why it may take a while. And then we also have participation of those who are attending. They contribute to what we're speaking about on the agenda. That's why there's hours. Have you ever sat at somebody's house and just had a nice long discussion, and you're only gonna stay for an hour? 4 hours later, you're just leaving? Your board meetings are no different. You're having discussions. You're having to make decisions for the business of the association. You don't discuss any business for associations through emails. I tell people, you cannot make a vote online.
Make a vote or discuss?
You can discuss,
So you do discuss via email?
you can discuss, but we really don't. We really don't. Occasionally, we will talk about things, but most of the time, I mean, do we? Board? Do we?
Information is shared with the board.
Information through management, once in a while when I have information to send out to the board, we send it out. But our discussions are mainly where, board?
Here in the sunshine.
Okay, Rose, your second question, final question. Why have you not fully disclosed to all that you and now your husband are
There's no more questions, because mine didn't get asked.
And mine didn't get it.
And I gave it them.
employed?
Honestly, don't quite remember, but one of the questions was, so we all got our packets within the last day or two. They seem to have come late, it seemed like there was a big delay. They're rifled with errors, I don't know if you guys have read them. One of the points was that, like on the candidate information sheet, it specifically said, you know, all, this sheet is gonna be shared, but emails and phone numbers are gonna be removed. That wasn't removed. It also said there was gonna be, meet the candidates night on May 21st, 20th. It also had, I mean, it was just rifled with
And if they
errors.
would take nominations.
Oh yeah, also they're gonna take nominations at the meet the candidate night.
That was for the 20th, May 20th.
Was there a meet the candidate night that night? 'Cause I heard there
We want
was.
to discuss the date for each candidate on the 20th.
Well, no.
But that's not what the
usually
form
that's not what
said.
it said.
And so my question was, because that wasn't a question, the question was, with all of these errors in this packet that was sent out for the voting materials, also John Baker's information was on the back of the proxy. It's not your fault, right? I'm sure it's not your fault, but that's unfair to everybody else to have that name right there. Is that going to invalidate this election once again because everything was done incorrectly?
This actually came from the attorney.
That doesn't surprise me.
So you're saying that this document was done by the attorney?
Yep.
Correct?
And the board is not responsible for accurate information being disseminated to the
Correct.
residents, is that
Well, let me
correct?
ask my question, Liz.
All right.
So is this an indication of a systemic problem that is consistent throughout the board, that every single document you guys send out is rifled with errors? I mean, every one. And it's just, it's ridiculous that you guys are producing materials that are like contracts and like things for us to vote that just have all these errors. Like, I just don't get how.
I don't know how many of them actually went out with a lot of errors. The amendment went out with errors? What, I think what he, I understand what he's saying, but I think what it is, yeah, we put a lot of faith in our attorney, I guess.
The attorney.
The attorney that's done you wrong.
So here's the thing, that candidate information sheet, I mean, that says some specific things on it. The attorney wasn't in charge of removing those names, I assume. We're not paying somebody $300 an hour, I would hope, to remove some names, okay? Did you guys not see the packet and look at it before it was sent out to the community? Rose, did you see the packet?
It was said, it was in a board packet, wasn't it?
So everybody on the board saw it, correct?
Not what we just received from the mail. I didn't see it.
So you did.
Some-
Did you see it, right? As the president rose, did you see it? Yes or no?
I did not look at it, no. Now, wait a minute.
So you just got sued, and you don't look at the packet that's going out related to the lawsuit? I mean, this is just, I'm sorry for getting upset here, but I'm passionate about this because it's just so absurd that you've had, how many times have we tried to have an election, and you still can't get it right?
I did not look at it, I felt the manager and the attorney were working.
Oh,
together.
yeah, blame somebody else, it's accountability.
Listen, in closing, guys, what we need is a quorum. We're done. I'm sorry.
I was not done.
I haven't had my 2 minutes today. I was answering everybody's questions.
And this is how many start.
Yes, exactly. They start screaming. All I'm asking everybody, go get your neighbors. We need a quorum. That's all we need.
Do you have a finished,
I believe that, she said she didn't get her question answered.
There's quite a few.
There's
There's a lot of questions that weren't asked.
Okay, my
Unfortunately, I gotta leave, but I have a question I'd like to get in before I leave.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, do it, do it.
1 minute. June 23rd, all 5 seats will be up for re-election. So therefore, it's a possibility that there could be 1, 2, 3, 4 new members. So therefore, it's a possibility only 1 of the 5 would exist. My question is, none of you members of this tonight made a statement that if I'm not re-elected, I will still assist the new people coming on. Is there a transition period before the new people will take their seat? Will they take their seat the 24th, the next morning, or will they take it?
It's 7 p.m. It's 7 p.m.
Are you asking if they're willing to have the transition, or are you asking?
I'm just asking. Right. The question here is, if any of you members up here who are decision members now, are you willing to offer advice to the new people coming in? Are you willing to assist in a transition period?
I'll continue to volunteer for this community regardless of whether I'm reelected or not, Dennis. Okay? I, from the time that I came into this community, I've been involved. I'm not gonna stop now.
Good. Well, no, I'm talking about the one who is presently in members now.
I've had other people already call asking for advice, seeking counsel, so they can figure out what all would be involved in being on the board, so.
Okay, all right, that's, that would help me make my decision.
Wouldn't it also be true that even if you guys said no, or all the current board members were wiped out in a bus accident? I'm not saying, that the property management company, the responsibility falls on the property management company to have knowledge of how an association runs and.
Daddy likes Mickey Mouse.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Mickey Mouse.
Actually, that was not given to us, they decided that the notices will be sent by and given to us by the attorney. And unfortunately, I took over after the fact.
No, I meant in relationship to this.
It's called continuing.
If everybody were nasty people on the board, or they all got wiped out, God forbid, on a school bus accident out here.
That's possible.
Yeah.
If a bus can go that fast.
Right, right, that to carry the process forward, you would always rely on the property management company and the.
We will be the liaison,
documents.
we will be the liaison to make sure that they're successful.
Right.
Yeah, because I'm just worried about like, especially like some of our finance stuff that's going on. Like, I feel that in order to carry things on in a way that everything is balanced and, true as possible, it has to be some type of continuation.
Good question.
For each member of the candidate table, starting at Mr. Baker and going down, have any of you ever sued or threatened lawsuits against another resident in North Shore at Lake Park? And if so, why?
No.
Yes. Ms. Stanford,
And why?
why? Because you slandered my husband.
Defamation of character.
Defamation of character.
And did you
I've still
say?
been with her.
And it still stands.
Okay,
It's still,
One minor detail, why are we still sending our money HOA dues every month to the same outfit that was here before? Yeah, it hasn't changed. We had one years ago where they changed and we got new, slips for members. Wait, we're saying that as not, but the stuff we got on January 1 for this year, it's still there, we're still sending it there to the same, whoever they are. And supposedly we've got new management there.
New managers, the company is the same.
All right.
Go down the line, what's the question? Is anybody sued somebody else? Go ahead, Rose is suing somebody.
no,
Correct.
we're done. We're done.
What about the rest of the people, did they answer a question?
I guess we don't have to.
No, just do it, answer the question. No. Okay, now it's done, just to be fair. Okay, we done?
I have a question. For the board.
Did you ask a question that was done?
No, I'm asking one more question.
So you're asking one more, so you already got your question.
Okay,
Yeah,
That's
that's
why
why.
he hasn't asked a question.
I submitted a question that wasn't.
Right, hers were, yours
I
weren't.
mean, if they were the
Wasn't
same.
this supposed to end, and I would go for it?
But
Yeah, go.
I attended a meeting last week, maybe the week before, a community meeting on this Camino Real and the two additional developments that are being built back here, which the Lake Mary Horse Association is represented by several hundred people. I didn't see anything from North Shore. What I found out in that meeting really disturbs me, because the county has changed that Innovation Way plan. It used to be Innovation Way to Downey. No, it's Innovation Way to White Cliff and dumping out in North Shore. And there's going to be over 10,000 homes in those three developments, dumping out on the Moss Park Road. You think we got traffic problems
Like on
now?
Old Waterford and out on.
And then you got, we've got a train crossing here. So the train comes, school's out, and you've got 10,000 more homes trying to get on Moss Park Road. How come not sure, did anyone, the question is, did anyone on this board, the existing board, go to that meeting? Were they aware of it? Did they know about it?
I have registered for it, but.
I have not worked at a particular meeting, but I've attended several of the other previous meetings, and that road you're talking about, been on the plan for much more than just the last month.
The Innovation Way was, not Innovation Way South, looking out the right, that was a change. It just slipped in there.
They've always had a road somewhere right around where we thought it is, and it's been a concern of mine much longer than just the meeting last week. You're absolutely right. One of the other iterations of the study has it basically coming out and almost making our intersection a four-way. And if they could force it in there, they would, but there's, between some wetlands and the railroad right away, they really can't make that one happen. And one of the iterations they had was to try to basically turn that one into a four-way.
And the traffic, people say, well, we'll do studies and we'll do impact assessment fees so that they'll take care of the roads. Well, they said when they built Waterford, that they widened Alabama, they said when they built Eastwood after that, they widened Alabama. When they built Stony Brook, they had time after.
They finally opened last Saturday.
15 years, they finally opened that road. We're gonna go 15 years for 10,000 more cars doing this before they do this here? Before they put an overpass over the railroad tracks or anything else? I mean, that's what should be happening. And
Dad, can we open this?
Go ahead and cut out with it.
¿Está también?
baby. Hey, Jimmy. Did you walk here?
Doing here? No, I drove. Did you guys walk here? Hi, how are you? She's at home in bed. She's sleeping.
Ready? Here. The mess up.
Well, all right. Pretty good, Dennis. That's good. How you doing?
Somebody already asked. Oh, wow. Okay. Remember they asked Rose said I'm gonna say that thing that went out to the community was ridiculously terrible. I don't understand it. Well, I don't know if that's why it's been lost.